Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. There are all sorts of hypotheses out there about with regard to where these beings and these objects come from. The most common, of course, is the extraterrestrial hypothesis, and there are others. And meaning others, you hear a whole bunch of different terms thrown out, but apparently all these terms fall under a basket called ultraterrestrial. And in ultra-terrestrial, that means these beings could be coming from parallel universes. They could be interdimensional beings, extra-dimensional beings. There's all different, people have all different definitions. If you go through the internet, you'll find all different kinds of explanations and definitions to what each one of these things means. For instance, like I've read online that interdimensional actually means beings that are somewhere in between dimensions, not from another dimension, but in between dimensions. And then extra dimensional means beings actually from another dimension. I don't know. Okay, and then there's also the a hypothesis that I've actually the famous astronomer Jacques Vallée, and also he's a UFO researcher. He's been going at this for many years. He's in his 80s now, and he's been investigating UFOs basically since the 1950s, and he has beliefs that don't really conform with a lot of other people who study this phenomenon. Vallée, for instance, believes that these beings could be basically from another dimension. And in 1990, he actually wrote a paper called The 5 Arguments Against the Extraterrestrial Origin of Unidentified Flying Objects. And these 5 arguments include, number 1, unexplained close encounters are far more numerous than required for any physical survey of the Earth. Number 2, the humanoid body structure of the alleged aliens is not likely to have originated on another planet and is not biologically adapted to space travel. 3, the reported behavior in thousands of abduction reports contradicts the hypothesis of genetic or scientific experimentation on humans by an advanced race. I totally disagree with that statement. I will get back to that. Number 4, the extension of the phenomenon throughout recorded human history demonstrates that UFOs are not a contemporary phenomenon. And number 5, the apparent ability of UFOs to manipulate space and time suggests radically different and richer alternatives. Now, of course, before we get into all of this, now there's the 3 dimensions that we, basically. There's width, height, length, and then a lot of people consider the 4th dimension as time. So if there are indeed 4 dimensions, the 1 temporal, 1 and 3 spatial dimensions. So we have 4 dimensions. Now, some scientists postulate that there could be other dimensions and that perhaps these beings that show up on a regular basis on our planet are coming from these other dimensions. Now, I just want to get back to what Vallée said here in his in some of these things, his arguments against the extraterrestrial origin of UFOs. He says, for number 1, he says unexplained close encounters are far more numerous than required for any physical survey of the Earth. I just don't know. I don't know how that you could reach that conclusion. I mean, Vallée's a smart guy. He's been around a lot longer and looking into this a lot longer than me and a lot of other UFO researchers. But I don't buy that at all. I mean, that doesn't make any sense actually to me. Unexplained close encounters are far more numerous than required for any physical survey of the Earth. Well, that doesn't. How do you know that they're just surveying the Earth? We don't know that. In fact, the evidence actually points to that they're here for another reason. Perhaps, as my NASA, my anonymous NASA, former NASA engineer contact has said recently, that these things apparently are here to feed on our cattle and perhaps even human beings. Okay, I mean, it looks like they're here. They've been here for a long time now. I mean, it's since at least 47 they've been here in mass as compared to time before that. We'll get into all that later here, but let's continue here. He says, too, the humanoid body structure of the alleged aliens is not likely to have originated on another planet. It is not biologically adapted to space travel. Why not? And how would you know that? How would anybody know that? I mean, with the endless possibilities, the endless amounts of planets scattered throughout our galaxy, let alone the universe, well, I would imagine most certainly there are beings that could be constructed like these alleged aliens, like the Greys, basically the humanoid figure. Why not? And I know recently Dr. Gary Nolan of Stanford actually said that in an interview with Tucker Carlson, which I just talked about in a previous podcast. Also, that these things might be avatars or biological robots. But again, I don't know how anybody knows. We don't know that. We don't know that. That's. I mean, I don't know. That's just again. And Vallée is not. He's not. This is just a theory, and it doesn't mean I'm saying I don't believe that. I just don't know how anybody could know that. Okay, but continuing. Number 3, the reported behavior in thousands of abduction reports contradicts the hypothesis of genetic or scientific experimentation on humans by an advanced race. That's completely false. Now, again, this paper came out in 1990, but there were some alien abduction books out there, and a lot of researchers were determining that it seems like these beings are up to some sort of hybridization program. They, abduct these, across the planet. Have claimed that these beings, the females say that they're removing eggs from them. The males say that they're taking sperm out of them. And then they're implanting embryos inside of females who carry these embryos for a little while, and then they remove the fetus, and like 3 months into this hybridization pregnancy, and they take it from there. So I mean that's prevalent. I mean, in books, especially since 1990, there's been a lot of research presented, like David Jacobs, a professor from Temple University, who wrote several books on this topic. The one book that I really like to point out, is The Threat from the late 90s. And it's, all these people, I mean, he came to the conclusion that these, that's what they're doing. It's some sort of a hybridization program. That's why they're abducting human beings. Okay, then number 4, the extension of the phenomenon throughout recorded human history demonstrates that UFOs are not a contemporary phenomenon. That's true, right? I agree with that. It's not a contemporary phenomenon, but it does seem like something happened starting in 1947. I mean, why weren't we noticing these things a lot more before 1947? I mean, there have been reports throughout history. I remember I read an article of some guy in Iowa in the 1920s who saw some sort of a probe hovering over the Mississippi River. And he never mentioned it, not until years later, not until the 70s. He never told a soul about it because he didn't want people to think he was crazy. But he did talk about it later on in life, when he was a lot older, of course. But I mean, that's just one example. I mean, there have been things seen throughout the ages, of course, but not to the extent that we started in 1947. I mean, let's think about it. I mean, we started having passenger planes, like, by the 1920s, people were flying in passenger planes. There was a lot of planes in the sky by the 1920s and 30s. So why weren't people really seeing a lot of UFOs back then? It wasn't until 47 until people start noticing these things, and then it became really big news when Kenneth Arnold spotted them flying over Mount Rainier, 9 objects. So, yeah, that's true. It's not contemporary. However, it seems like something happened beginning in 47 where a lot more of them seemed to be around. And then number 5, the apparent ability of UFOs to manipulate space and time suggests radically different and richer alternatives. Well, again, I don't know how we know that. Again, and then this is just a theory from Vallée, and this is my theory. I don't know how we know that. I don't know if we could say that. I mean, these beings are I believe, are so advanced that they're just we can't. We just can't put our finger on what's going on here because we just don't know enough about them, and that's by design. They don't want us to know much about them. I mean, basically their whole project here, whatever it is, if it's a colonization program and they're basically colonizing this planet, and there's this hybridization program where they apparently want to intermingle with our society somehow for some purpose. But it's beyond our understanding at this point, and we just don't understand how any of their technology operates, or how we don't know how. People say, okay, well, a lot of scientists argue in favor of like interdimensional beings because like that solves the problem of traveling, in tremendous distances through space to get to Earth. But again, I don't know. How do you come up with that kind of technology to travel from one dimension to another in the first place? Isn't that sounds even more incredible to me? And actually, we don't know. In 1,000 years, we might figure it out. There's things just our scientists just ain't thinking of right now. And I think that's what's most likely going on. As you can see, I favor the extraterrestrial hypothesis. I think that they're extraterrestrials. And actually, if you read books on this, I've read numerous books on this, and as the abductees ask sometimes. These beings will point to a star system and say, and indicate that that's where they're from. So it's not like, and this happened numerous occasions. There's a lot of abductees whose memories, by the way, the aliens do not believe are going to ever be recovered. They believe that these people that they're abducting are not going to remember anything, right? But when they do remember some of these things under hypnosis, it does seem like the aliens have indicated that they are coming from other places, other planets, not from another. They don't. There's never, these beings never talk about other dimensions or anything to that effect. Now, I'm going to read a little bit of an article that I found here. It's called. The difference between extraterrestrials and ultraterrestrials, and it's on a website here called Knowledge Nuts, and it was written by, I guess by the administrator, but and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to get into the part about what's stated regarding the ultraterrestrials. One of the most prominent alternatives to ET and the null hypothesis being that these things are natural phenomena and there is no extraterrestrials coming here or anything strange about UFOs, is the ultraterrestrial hypothesis. This hypothesis suggests that rather than originating from other star systems within our universe, UFOs are craft or phenomena originating from some form of elsewhere, such as another dimension, universe, or reality. This theory would also allow the UFO phenomenon and its various incarnations and seeming contradictions to be addressed in a holistic manner. It also suggests that UFOs are so difficult for us to get a grip on simply because they come from somewhere beyond the realms of modern human understanding. This theory also helps explain other related aspects of UFO lore, such as the supposed men in black who are linked to mysterious demonic or devilish figures in black reported in legend and folklore. While the model for the extraterrestrial intelligences seems to assume that they are explorers or invaders of some kind, the ultraterrestrial hypothesis lends itself to different speculations. UFO researchers John Keel and Jacques Vallée suggested that there was a control system created by ultraterrestrial beings which has power over three-dimensional reality and the human perception of it, a role some have called a custodian role. Others see extra-dimensional rats, which are able to hide from us due to the relatively narrow range of perception of the electromagnetic spectrum. Or they could be cosmic tricksters, creatures from different realities that our ancestors once perceived as magical little people lurking in the forest, or burning chariots, or winged angels in the sky. Of course, the problem with this hypothesis is that it purports that UFOs are simply beyond our ability to understand, comprehend, or even perceive, making it simply impossible to verify or test the theory. This in and of itself doesn't make the hypothesis wrong, but it does put it in the same category as magic and ghosts. And I actually completely agree with that statement. I don't agree that these things are ultra terrestrial. I just don't see it. I don't believe that they're interdimensional. I don't believe that they're extra dimensional. I don't believe that they've been here all the time, living under the ocean or something. We just didn't know it. I don't think that's what's been going on. I think that these beings there have been various different extraterrestrials monitoring this planet for millennia. And for whatever reason, starting in 1947, a large group came here, and they've been coming here. And I think my theory doesn't make me right. I think that there is some sort of a colonization in progress. That's what I think. I don't think that they're. And another theory I heard thrown out, and actually I believe this was thrown out by Valet. That these things could be time travelers. It could actually be us traveling from the future into the past. I don't believe that either. I don't think that's. I think what's going on here, I think that unfortunately some people actually have thought too much about this, and they're. That's what I believe. I think they they think too much about this, right? And because and this is all born out of frustration. These theories that they come up with, the ultra-terrestrial theories, are born out of frustration because they just can't, get a grasp on the proof that they need. So they say, well, it's just beyond. It's almost like sour grapes to me. They say that they're interdimensional, extra-dimensional. To me, that's like sour grapes, because how are we ever going to figure that out? And it's not that the proof doesn't point in that direction anyhow. These objects are solid objects. I've seen one of these objects. They're solid. And when I was a kid, one of these beings was in my room, right? It cast a shadow. It was there. There was something there, right? And then you have all these abductions, all these people that have been abducted throughout the years. They were on physical craft, right? I mean, I just don't. I mean, it's not. This isn't rocket science. Right, it's extraterrestrial as far as I'm concerned. I know there's a lot of people out there that that probably watch my podcast and think otherwise. Think it could be other things. I mean, I could be proven wrong. I'm not saying I'm 100% correct on this. I just think that the evidence points to extraterrestrials. I think that these things are coming from other planets, and just because our science says that's impossible, it's impossible to travel those distances through space to get here, right? That doesn't mean it's not possible. It's not impossible. It's most likely possible if you're an advanced race, right? And actually, the proof shows that it's possible because they're here. But I just think and actually, there's a lot of people, even in mainstream UFO researchers and people that talk about this all the time throw this out there, that these things could be interdimensional. I've heard Lou Elizondo throw that out before. I've heard, Christopher Mellon. There's a lot of people out there that say this because they just don't know. But it's actually, I think the bottom line is, I think we're thinking too much when we start talking about interdimensional, extra-dimensional, ultra-terrestrial, I think it's just a matter of thinking too much. And the idea that another theory you hear sometimes is that these things were always here, and they were living under the ocean, and they're, or in the Antarctic the whole time, and they're just making their presence known now. I think that's absolutely absurd. I mean, that's absurd. It seems like something cracked. Something happened beginning in 1947, which has brought us to this moment in time where these things are still showing up on a regular basis, and they leave physical marks on the ground when they land. People get injured when they get too close to them. People get abducted, and there's a hybridization program that they're forced to be part of by these beings. We don't know how many different species are here. That's another question. I mean, there's a lot of other questions that we need to be concerned about, rather than wondering are these interdimensional or ultra-terrestrial or extra-dimensional, or, no, I don't think that's the case. Okay. Again, it doesn't make me right. I'm sure the people will argue with me on this one. But as far as I'm concerned, these beings are from other planets, and they possess technology that is so beyond our even our imagination understands sometimes that that's why we get upset. We're upset. And so we just kick the can down the road and say, well, you know what? They're probably from another dimension or a parallel universe, another universe that exists within our universe, and somehow they figured out how to squeeze in here something. No. I just don't see it. Doesn't make me right, but I just don't see it. That's my opinion.